name's Casey Price, host of a brand new show called Everyday Elder Care. My show will help you take the stress out of caring for your elderly loved one.
Hey, hello. You're watching the In Tune Music Industry Talk Show. I'm your host, Anthony Wolf Luberto, and today I have a really interesting guest. Great stories. I'm going to save them for the end, so I make sure he gets them all in. But I want to introduce you today, musician, guitar player, songwriter, and a wacky guy, Frank Porter. Frank, thank you for being on the show.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate it.
It's great to meet you.
So, we were doing some pre-interview stuff, and you were telling me some really crazy stories, but I want to say them from the end because,
yes.
Right, they're very interesting. But you live in Center Valley, Pennsylvania, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so what I want to do is I want you to tell me about your early days in Lake Placid and how you actually got involved in the music scene and what led you to the area, and just a brief overview of what you've been doing.
Sure.
Go ahead.
All right. The earliest days came about because I'm going to skip through some stuff. An art teacher brought in the album Kiss Alive and was playing it during class. And then at lunchtime, he put two tables together and got up on the tables and got his electric guitar out and put on a concert for a little while.
Freely?
And then he got fired. Yes. So I guess I can say his name, right? Ed Baker.
Sure.
Yeah. I love you, Ed. Yeah, so he kind of inspired me with that.
Okay.
I had heard some rock and roll before that, but something about that got into me. They sounded like they were having so much fun. I was like, that just sounds like a lot of fun.
I can imagine.
So I thought that's pretty cool. So maybe I'll try another Kiss album.
Okay.
Right? And I went out and got one, and that got me in the mood to pick up a guitar.
Okay.
Father said I had to wait a year, so I played a tennis racket for that first year. Tony Cole, who also wanted a guitar, also played a tennis racket with me. So he waited out that year with me.
Okay.
And we put on Kiss concerts in the basement.
You're acting out?
Yeah. And I spat ketchup and stuff. There's photographs somewhere of that stuff.
What, for fake blood?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we attracted the hottest drummer in the area, the hottest rock drummer, and it wasn't known for being a rock area, but there was this guy who liked Kiss who was the best drummer in the area.
Okay.
And he heard that we were doing tennis racket Kiss shows, and suddenly he's in our basement watching us with tennis rackets. And he kind of dug us, and he already had a guitar player he was working with. So a year later, when we got the guitars, he became the first drummer, and we started rocking with originals
He didn't show up with a tennis
already.
racket, right? He showed up with a drum kit, not a tennis
No, a
racket?
real drum kit. In fact, he could play guitar and everything. This guy was
Okay.
a super talented kid. So he taught me some Led Zeppelin stuff on guitar. That's how good he was on guitar. I mean, he was really a talented fellow. So it grew from there, but he and us grew apart, and we got another drummer, and then we called the band Demon. And I wanted to shock the people up there. It's a bluegrass country kind of area. Mm-hmm. So overnight, we became infamous when the Boy Scouts hired Demon to play in our church. We hung up our Demon logo underneath a cross. So those are the earliest moments where I was already doing original music with my friend Tony. And it just keeps going. So the Demon thing leads to a school guitar player comes up to me and says, I hear you play good guitar. Would you like to audition for my band? And I thought, well, this is a step in the right direction.
This is still in Lake Placid.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So I step in with this guy and pass the audition. Next thing I know, I'm in a band called Critical Mass.
Okay.
The guy, Tom Varga, who was the guy who interviewed me, now is an Oscar winner for Birdman. So he went into sound. So, but he's really good. And I thought at one point we were going to rule the world, honestly, because he and I were really amazing together.
Are you still in touch with him at all?
I talk to him sometimes. It would be so awesome to just play with him even one more time. That would be great. And there's so many people I could say that about. I mean, this is just one of the many people.
So okay, that was your early days in Lake Placid. Now, how do you get to Center Valley and then the Philadelphia music scene, which I read your bio, and it's really impressive, winning all kind of awards and contests and record deals.
Yeah, recently.
Explain that.
Yeah. So how I got to Pennsylvania, I'll go over that quickly.
Okay.
I was in a cover band called Wild Root, and we were hot. We used to pack the place so much the fire department would look at the place we were playing, and the club owner paid us more than they promised. So that never happens, but that's what was happening.
Pretty unusual, right?
Yeah, I knew
Were
that
you
was
shocked
bizarre.
when he was coming up to you
and I'm
and
just
saying-
this young guy. I'm living like a king now. I have a regular
Okay.
job. I'm playing this band. All kinds of money's coming in. I'm thinking,
Right.
man, I'm on top of the world. I mean, really, that's how it felt.
Awesome.
At that point. And then the singer and I started doing originals, and the band didn't want us to do originals, so they fired us. And we continued to do originals, and we just worked our butts off. And finally, Elektra, somehow, I played to a packed college stadium. I don't even know how that happened. To this day, I think of that stadium gig and go, how did that happen?
So when you were talking about Elektra Records, right?
Yeah, that's what attracted me, that packed college stadium.
But what I'm saying is, were you aware that Elektra Records or anyone was...
I had no clue anyone was looking at us.
So how did that all come about? So you went to play a show, and Elektra Records, how do you find out that they're there, first off?
Well, suddenly they're sending a guy to every show, and he's telling us what's wrong with that and what's right with this and do more of this.
But at that point, you didn't know he was basically scouting you?
Well,
Scouting the band?
And then we got an offer
Okay.
to tour with Fish, and then my partner decided that it was way too serious, and she didn't want to tour. And that's where it ended, because she was the lead, she was the front person, lead vocalist, and I couldn't do it without her.
So then that was that. So
that ended that.
you turned, I guess there was no deal then, right?
No deal.
Okay.
That close, but yeah. That's
Okay.
the music business for you, though.
Yes, it is. You got to be ready for
So we
anything
keep on
that-
going. That's what I do.
Okay, so you kept on going, and then...
And
like
that
I
led
said-
me, well, this story goes further.
Okay.
The vocalist is originally from North Wales, Pennsylvania. This is how I get here.
Okay.
Our music was so good, we were nearly signed to Elektra. Now she's moving to Pennsylvania. I'm thinking, I want to keep this going. Even though she didn't sign,
Right.
I want to see where this can go. And I want to move to a more populated area. Where I was from at that time was pretty rural. My nearest neighbor was 5 miles. I was living
Yeah.
in a town called Vermontville. So I was
Okay.
like, let's get out of here. Let's try this.
Right.
And so I get here, and the first thing we do is enter a recording contest, and to show us that the magic is still intact, we took first place in this recording contest. I never got to do the recording. By that point, our relationship had fallen apart. We were also boyfriend, girlfriend. Not a good idea if you're trying to be a professional musician.
Not all
but-
the time. Not all the time. Okay, I hear you.
So that came apart, and that's kind of the birth of my solo act. Something like that. I went out and started doing open mics in the area, and then started singing my originals, because who's going to do it if I don't do it? So I just kept it going, kept doing that.
And that's
kind
what I
of thing.
found really interesting when I was looking over your resume or everything that you've been doing. So you decided to do the solo act. So how tough is that when you're, I mean,
Brutal.
I could imagine how tough it is because I go out and see a lot of solo. But I mean, so you're a singer-songwriter, you're writing songs, and you decide, hey, listen, this is something I have to do right now. I'm going to be a solo. So you step up into a club, obviously maybe
Feels
not.
like you're naked.
Okay, so you're up there
That's how
playing.
it feels.
And how do you?
So then you just start
Yeah.
doing your thing and watching the people and see what they react to. And after a while, if you
But I
play
mean-
enough shows, you can figure
Right, but I
things
mean,
out.
at this point, you're playing your original material.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, lots of original material. In fact, I
So-
have some awards for my original
Yeah, I
material.
was reading. It's really
it's
great. You
awesome.
got
I am
were-
blessed. Thank you.
you were signed to Tate Music Group.
Yes, they no longer exist, I think. I
Okay.
haven't heard from them in a while. I'm not officially on-signed, but I don't know their status. I think they
Okay.
may have run into some legal trouble.
Legal trouble.
That's what I heard.
Okay, so I was checking out your Reverb Nation page, which I thought was really impressive.
Thank you.
And you were ranked #1
In my area.
in your area.
Right.
But there was something. I mean, this is incredible. Song plays 78,000 song plays, video plays 4.4 thousand plays, and total fans 1.7 thousand fans from your Reverb Nation page for your acoustic
You're right.
material. Okay, but I found something really interesting. The song "I Can Win." I watched the video of this song, and it had mega views, but I was really impressed. But the story behind that is, from what I get, it said you were sick, and you
Yeah.
were determined to get out of the hospital because the band was waiting for you to return to play.
That's pretty
I
much
wanna-
the story.
I want to hear about that, if you could expand on that a
Sure.
little bit.
1982, I had stumbled into this band called The Source.
Okay.
Here's how we got the name, just briefly, so everyone understands.
yeah, take
A lot
your
of
time.
people don't know. And it's not about drugs, it's about the energy in the universe.
Okay.
But the source, the name came from, I'm a little deaf. I've always played loud rock and roll. I also used chainsaws, and I grew up on snowmobiles. So I'm a little deaf, and my partner Pierre was walking behind me in a narrow hallway, and he apparently said, I wish we had a thesaurus. And I heard the source. And I immediately turned around and went, perfect. And he's looking at me like I'm crazy.
Isn't that something how things happen?
Right? Yeah, and it became so popular at one point. It was the fans were amazing.
Okay.
We did a show a year later with a different band, the Honorable Schoolboys, and backstage sprayed painted this large across the wall as the source. And I was like, ooh, that doesn't look like, I wouldn't be too happy if it was my room that happened to. But it did make a statement, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. On the other hand, people really dug the source. We had awesome fans.
It's a great name.
Yeah.
And even better how you came upon it.
Yeah.
Right?
And it really fit the time up there in Lake Placid, so that was a hot band.
So, you said that you were coming back, and you whatever illness it was, you
I had pneumonia.
You had pneumonia, okay.
Yeah. So I had pneumonia pretty bad. They gave me 3 shots of adrenaline. They don't even give you shots of adrenaline anymore because it would kill you. But at that point, they didn't know that. So I got the legal max of adrenaline, and I was continuing to get worse. My breathing continued to deteriorate. And then they started talking about tracheotomy. And at that point, I decided, I am not going to sleep because you're not doing that to me. That was my attitude at that point. So I was ready to fight doctors off if they tried to do that. So they didn't do that, and around 3 o'clock in the morning, an event happened, and I could breathe better, and it all worked out good. But it was months of recovery, and my band did have to wait. And that's what I Can Win is about, that they were waiting. And I wrote that as I was recovering, so I was kind of in a strange place in my head when that music came out of me. It is a different sounding song from a lot of my other songs.
And as I was listening to it, I was actually noticing from the lyrics that it seemed like the band gave you some kind of inspiration, more or less.
Oh yeah,
to
I was working to
get yourself
better.
out of the hospital. You were determined to play with the band again.
Yeah, I wanted to get back with them so bad it wasn't even funny. And there was a bunch of people waiting because we had a lot of fans that just attended our rehearsals.
Okay.
So even our rehearsals were events, so they weren't happening. All that stuff stopped because I was really sick, and some people wrote me nice letters and of encouragement to get better. And some people came to visit me while I was in the hospital. And they had me on something that some kind of mist, and one of my fans, he was like, let me try that. So he tried that too.
Oh, he figured he would.
Yeah, why not? While I'm here, while it's running, give me a taste. Hey, that's Bob.
Yeah, I mean, I really commend the band, whoever it is, because
they were my family at that point. They really were.
Because today, you really don't find a band that would be committed to waiting for one person. They would say, well, hey, Frank, listen, I hope you get better. We're still going to go on, but we got to do what we got to do. So I really give the band, you want to give them a shout, whoever they are?
Pierre, Suzanne, and Paul Dudley.
Nice.
And they're both still alive. I think Paul's in South Carolina or North Carolina. And Pierre, last I heard, is back in upstate New York in Saranac Lake, where I was born.
Okay.
So I should go up there and visit him.
Great. So I want to ask you, being that you're a singer-songwriter and you're doing a solo at this point, how do you come up with ideas for your songs? Like, what inspires you to write?
Usually the best songs come from some kind of event in my life. Oftentimes it's a traumatic, painful event, but sometimes it's a happy event. Depends on what it is. And the songs reflect the event, so sometimes my songs sound more serious, sometimes they're more upbeat.
So are you basically sitting in a studio? Are you sitting in your living room? Are you with your acoustic?
I have the acoustic available all the time, and I pick it up very often. In the old days, this is good, 1982, I had it strapped on me wherever I went. If you saw me going anywhere, I didn't have a car, so I could carry it.
Okay.
I carried it everywhere. Okay. People always remember that about me, that I brought my guitar everywhere I went. 20 below zero weather with no case, I'm hugging my guitar, trying to keep it warm.
Really?
Yeah, the strings are popping. But yeah, sometimes that's where I was with that guitar.
So I'm saying, if you get a cold day and you're, say, in front of a supermarket, you're really playing your guitar in 20 degree below zero weather?
Well, at that point, I would stop in and visit people and play along with people, yes. So I'd play where I stopped. Yes, that's how I do it. I do the same thing if it's too hot. I'll go in and get air conditioning, cool down a little bit.
Okay, so now just to backtrack a little bit. So you were with the band. You're with the band, And what made you turn solo? Because you had a band and you were playing with. Was it a matter of just?
Frank Porter's Problem Children was the last band I was with before I went solo. And this is Pennsylvania now.
Okay.
And a Grammy Award-winning drummer was in my band, and I had to fire him. And that's what was going on in my band. They weren't doing what I asked. And 5 years of not doing just one drum part, that's all I asked, and do some harmonies.
Very cool. Frank, at this point, I have to stop for